when we started doing what we're doing. I didn't necessarily know that there was a market for it. And also, I didn't necessarily have the confidence that we were really good at it. Like I might like something. Does that mean that it's good? And early on, it was really just the two of us with a couple people in the field. So that was a lot on my shoulders to be like, well, maybe I'm a terrible architect. I have no idea. I hope not. So then testing it with my house, and I was like, this is actually pretty good. And then, yeah, over time, you just have a little bit more confidence and experience in knowing what works well and what doesn't.
You're listening to the Remodeler Digital Playbook, a show created to inspire remodeling contractors to achieve success in their remodeling business. I am your host, Ratna Ramakrishnan. I'm also the founder of Remodeler Digital, the digital marketing agency for remodeling contractors. In each episode, I'll be chatting with remodeling contractors and top experts discussing their proven methods for revenue generation, the insights they've gained, and the keys to remodeling success. And I'll be sharing my knowledge of how I created a 7-figure business using digital marketing. David Pollard, welcome. I'm delighted to have you here today. Well, I'm super excited to speak to you because you're my first interview with an architect, builder, designer, the works. And so I'm really excited to learn about your processes, learn about your story, and to share with our Remodeler Digital Playbook podcast audience. So welcome, David, again. David runs a full-service residential design build firm delivering award-winning projects throughout Chicago's suburbs with his company called Livco, and he has a partner. So let's dig in and hear more about his story. I'm always fascinated with architects. I have an older sister who just used to sketch a lot, and art does not very naturally to me, and I used to love drawing as well. So I'm just fascinated with brains that can sketch, and architects are, you're just sketching things to scale. So tell me a little bit about your childhood. What drove you? Were you born with this passion? Were you always doodling and creating and tinkering when you were growing up?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think it was probably my 10th birthday. I asked for a drafting board for my birthday present. So people ask me that a lot. I don't think that I'm normal in most architects. I think a lot of them, have a passion for making things and things of that nature. I guess I was somewhat lucky in that I kind of knew the whole idea of building things, and I loved drawing the things that were the instructions to build the thing. So it was something that for sure I was passionate about from an early age. I think I have a lot of my old sketchbooks from like second grade where I was drawing my friends' houses and floor plans. So it was definitely something that was, ingrained in me early on. I think I'm the youngest of a large family, and so I was fortunate that my parents traveled a lot more with me than they probably did with some of the older ones. And I had a great aunt outside of Manhattan that had this really cool house in the woods on the Hudson River Valley. So I got exposed to, I think, a lot of interesting spaces and houses and things of that nature. So that was helpful. And then, yeah, it was easy. Straight into architecture school, become an
Amazing. So
architect.
did you play
Didn't
a
have to make
bunch
too
with
many decisions
Lego
from there.
or other things like growing up, or did you just put pencil to paper and sketched a lot?
Yeah, I mean, you can probably see behind me, I still play with Legos. Yeah, no,
and
I
you
always love
you
Legos. I
have
mean, our
kids
basement,
now.
the whole floor was just full of Legos. So I do, and we have a whole Lego room, which it kind of started in our old house in Chicago in our basement. The kids were getting older, so we wanted to have a place for them to kind of sit and play Xbox, play video games, things like that. But I also wanted to make sure that,
Yeah.
the Legos didn't just go into a closet and you pull them out when you wanted to play with them. So around the basement, around the couch, we had, built-ins with Legos, shelves with all their stuff out, and then ended up saving all the old Lego boxes and making
Amazing.
the
How fun.
wall look like a stack of Lego boxes. So when they're staring at the TV, yeah, and if they're staring at a TV and, just playing video games and melting their brains, at least maybe they think, oh, maybe I'll get up and, build something. So I think it works. If a piano is in a closet, no one's going to play it. If a piano is in a place where people want to be, they're going to sit down
So
and
how
play
was
it, right?
architecture
That's kind of how
school
I
when
like to
you
think
went there?
about it.
Did it immediately meet what you hoped it would do for you? As with your, from childhood, you'd been sketching and visualizing spaces. And at what point did you realize that you're not interested in like designing like the Burj Khalifas or, the super tall 200 feet ceilings, and you wanted to do like residences, because all of it is architecture. And I'm just very curious to know how your brain knew that you wanted to do, residential stuff.
That's a
Yeah.
great question. There's a lot in there. I'll kind of start with architecture school. That was not what I expected, and I don't think anybody who goes into architecture school realizes what it really is. And I went to Virginia Tech. It's a 5-year program kind of based on the Bauhaus School. It was basically, I remember our first year professor, his job, he told us, was to make sure that we forgot everything that we learned in high school and started over. So it was a very interesting curriculum that changed my way of thinking about the world and about design and problem solving. I think a lot of people showed up with a T-square and a triangle ready to draw floor plans, including myself. And our first project was we're all sitting around there. We're all 18-year-old kids. It's our first time in college. It's our first studio, which is a 4-hour time that you spend in architecture school. Your studio time, you have a desk, you have a table, you have projects to work on. Our professor comes in, introduces himself, and puts an onion down in the middle of the table, and then says, I want each of you to write 6 pages about this onion. And then he just left. And he walked away. And we're like, when are we going to start drawing houses, right? So then he comes back like 5 minutes later, and we're all just sitting there. Maybe some people are writing some stuff, and he says, has anyone even picked the onion up? And it's like, we didn't know that we could do that. We just thought we were just supposed to stare at the onion and write 6 pages about it. And then he came back 10 minutes later. He said, did anybody peel the onion? Right? He kind of started with this exercise of, we're so conditioned in everything that we learn that we know what we know, or,
Amazing.
There's more to the world than just what we think, and we have to explore it. So that was Jay Stokel, who was an incredible professor. He was my first year professor, and then that kind of continues in second year, where it's also very conceptual, theoretical. We're not designing buildings. We're taking apart onions, building mousetrap cars, diagramming. I mean, it was really, you either like it or you change majors, because it's an interesting curriculum. So what was cool about that, and that's a 5-year program, and after that, you're set up really to do anything, as far as I'm concerned, because it doesn't necessarily teach you, how to draw a drawing or build a building. It teaches you how to learn how to do that on your own, and to create new ways of thinking about the world and how to make things, right? So that was really powerful for me. And then I went and worked for a small architecture firm in Chicago, small, like 25, 30 people. And we did some residential work and some commercial. I love the residential. I just love houses. So I was kind of on that side of things, but we didn't do too much of it. And then I had the opportunity, I got hired by Optima, which is a architect-led developer. And that was doing multifamily, but it was really pretty provocative multifamily, 700-unit buildings in Chicago and Arizona. We controlled the entire process. We were the general contractor, the developer, the architect. I learned a lot about systems for design and repetitive pieces to make really interesting buildings that were efficient. I also had the opportunity to work in the field in Arizona. So I worked on a construction site in the job trailer. And then the economy started tanking in the great financial crisis. So I moved back to Chicago from Arizona and had a job at Catch Partners, where we were doing large scale super talls, essentially, and a lot of projects overseas, because I think there was a lot of stuff in the Middle East and China that was going while the US had slowed down. And that is where I learned that I was not good at designing
Yeah,
big
yeah.
buildings. To go to the second part of your question, I just I couldn't visualize myself in them. I didn't really understand how to make them special and good. It was the scale of it was just too much for me. And so I kind of felt like I was good at my role there, and I would probably go definitely more into a technical realm versus being able to kind of be creative and develop ideas and draw and sketch and build things. So from there, I left and went to graduate school to try and figure out how an architect who loves houses can actually be involved in housing in any meaningful way other than just design houses for the super wealthy or work out of your basement. Um, so I did a thesis on that, and
As
then
your
I worked for a
partner.
small scale developer where I met Russ, who was our director of construction, and I was the director of design. And we teamed up a couple of years later and formed Livco and said, maybe we can actually provide good design and quality construction the way that we think it should be done.
Yeah,
So that's
I mean,
there's a lot in there from architecture school to where we
incredible
are
to
today,
kind
but
of
that
you
that's
kind of
how
niche
that's how
down
my
and
brain
hone down
evolved.
that you like the fact that you like building residences and not, multifamily or humongous buildings. And it's great that you have a partner because, entrepreneurial life is hard enough that finding that match in a partner is so important to be able to pursue your dreams and grow your brand really fast. And you guys have a really cool brand. I was looking at your website and your branding. And so where did it go from there once you decided to start Livco and you had a partner? Did you just dive in and started marketing yourselves to like homeowners? And how did that trajectory go?
No, I wish. Well, I don't know that we had the confidence that people wanted really great design and was willing to pay for it because historically the remodeling world as we knew it is pretty unsophisticated and kind of very competitively bid. And so all of a sudden, if we came in and started making things more expensive, is that what people would want, right? They're like, I just want my kitchen. Why are you so expensive? So I don't think that we really started marketing it because we didn't know that it would necessarily work. We did more
Oh,
when we started, we were doing foreclosure rehab work. So we try to figure out efficient ways to be able to remodel and deliver whole house renovations really efficiently and inexpensively. So I think we first kind of went into it thinking maybe our thinking can make construction less expensive. And then kind of found ourselves realizing our value add was actually in our creative thinking and ability to not do that, to come up with solutions that weren't boilerplate, because there you're just competing with everybody else that's just doing the same thing, white shaker cabinets, all this stuff. Like, where's my value add? So we started just by friends and family projects. We had friends in the Chicago suburbs who bought a house and wanted to do some work to it. So we did that. I think we came up with a really neat plan for it. And then my own house, we put an addition on my house, and then we had some work to show, and people were intrigued by it. And then we just started building on that, mostly word of mouth. We did invest in our website at that somewhere in that point where I'm like, we need a real website. And our first marketing step there was to actually hire, and I've talked about this on some other podcasts. Architects think that they're great graphic designers and great,
right.
marketing geniuses. They're not, right? Like, this isn't what I do. I can make a really cool house, but when it comes to, branding and logos and things like that, there's professionals that do this for a living and think outside the box on those things. So we actually hired a really cool Chicago firm called 50,000 Feet, who does like stuff for BMW and super high-end clientele. But I had a family connection to one of the partners there, and they talked to us and gave us a proposal. And I'm like, how can we leverage you guys' talent, but really keep it simple and cost effective for us? So we came up with a solution where they essentially just developed a brochure for us. So it was like a 10 pager. It was super shiny, really, really beautiful. And they interviewed us and they gave us an A and a B. And from choosing one of those, we then had our nickname. We're actually Live Companies, but we became Livco then because they're like Livco. We have a font. We have, a color package. We have kind of a photo library that was curated by them and their eyes. So that was a really efficient way to, put a brand and an initial marketing impact in place for, I think, $15,000 at that time. Then we use that piece to give to our website designer to say, now we're going to trust you to build us a really great, SEO based interactive site that is, partial lead gen, partial portfolio, and use this as the foundation for it. So everything that we've built marketing wise since then, this logo and everything comes from that piece that 50,000 feet made for us.
Yeah, your brand looks great. It presents beautifully online. And so from there on, you started getting projects from using examples of your friends and family and your own additions to market yourselves with the cool brand and the website. Amazing. So today, let's say there's a lead that comes into your universe who's interested in your services. What does that process look like, and what kinds of hats do you wear within your organization? Are you speaking to the lead as soon as they come in wanting to work with Livco, or do you come along when they've kind of made a decision to work with you and then you're engaged with them through the design process? So walk us through what it would feel for a homeowner that comes in and decides to do business with you.
Sure. Yeah. If a lead comes in, which is usually email or phone call, Luann, who was in our office, our administrative manager, fields that call. If it's a phone call, she'll chat with them a little bit. There's not a whole lot of information we're really asking her to get on that initial call, other than name, address, phone number, email, and what they might be interested in doing. And our main qualifier when they first come in, for the most part, is geography. We just keep that really simple. And then from there, she will follow up with them. And we ask people to go through our website and to set up a video call with me. And so that just goes right through the link into Calendly, links up with my calendar, and they schedule a 30-minute Zoom call with me. That call is, I already have a little bit of information about them. I asked them to do a questionnaire. I'm able to look up their house. I'm able to get a whole bunch of information about what they might be trying to do. And I listen to them for the first half to 2/3 about what they're thinking about and ask them lots of questions. And then I use the last 10 minutes to talk through our process and share a potentially similar project and talk through the process as it relates to that project. And then also, the budgets that we see in that.
Right.
So when we talk about budget, we're usually using historic project data or third-party data. I don't know how much their project costs. And then at the end of that, our upfront contract is if we just determine if we're a good fit for each other or not, and just, don't be afraid to say no. We're not for everybody. And then if they say yes, we follow up. Well, either way, if they say yes, we follow up with their typical email follow-up, which will have a general summary of what we talked about, and then some other fun stuff on our website in case they haven't seen it, like before and after sliders, all of our feasibility presentation videos, and then a DocuSign link to sign and get on our feasibility list, to sign up, to get on our schedule so that we field measure. And they click on that, they sign it, it comes to us, Luann plugs it into Builder Trend, they make their payment, and then we schedule the field measure, and then we take it from there. Now, if they say, yes, I think that we're a good fit, but they don't convert, then I follow up with them in 1 week and then 2 weeks. Yeah. But I don't have any, it's all very personal. It's not at our scale. There's not a whole lot of automations beyond the lead intake meeting. We do the exact same thing if a lead comes in on email. We just correspond and have them go through Zoom to or Calendly to schedule that Zoom call. Right, but it
feels personal because of the video capabilities today. And the first preliminary call is complimentary, the time with you for 30 minutes. And then from there on, should they decide to engage with you is when they get, input into Build a Trend, and then they become a lead that's going to pay you and get the process started. So I have a friend who's a wedding videographer,
right?
And I think she shot some 5,000 weddings or something, and she always would joke around and say, when I go to the wedding, I know if the couple's going to make it or not after having been through so many weddings. So similarly, when you meet a family on a call, do you know the vibe? Like, are you able to tell they're a good lead that would, marry well into your processes? Or it's kind of hard to predict because this is not a minor investment. We're not talking about like a $15,000 or $30,000 kitchen remodel. With design and build, you're probably talking at $500,000 or more today. And do you have that sense of like homeowners, if they're going to be a good fit for your brand? And
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's part of my job on that call, and I have a sheet that I don't always use, but I'm trying to establish why they're doing this, right? What are their pain points? It's not just because they're bored. There must be some need, something that's not right that is making them want to spend all this money, tear their house apart, be displaced, right? There has to be something like, why are we doing this? And there's 6 reasons is what we've learned from a sales trainer called named Chip Doyle. It's epic BS. They're embarrassed to have people over. They're lacking privacy. They feel isolated. They are cramped and cluttered. They're broken promises, and broken promises would be, hey, we bought this house 5 years ago, honey, and you said that we're going to remodel and make it nice, and the ceiling's falling down, right? And then there's safety. So, and more often than not, it's multiple factors in this. Like there might be a safety issue, but they also, if they're going to fix all the things that are wrong with the electrical in their house, maybe they want to consider a new kitchen that is more open so they don't feel so isolated. And then it would be really nice because right now they're embarrassed to have people over because every time they open their kitchen cabinet, the door falls off, right? So you're trying to dial into those things. And usually if they really don't have any major issues that they really, really need to solve,
I see.
We're going to be way too robust of a solution for them because we're going to have a team of design. It's going to take a long time to get to what the solution is. And if they just say, hey, will you just open this wall up for me? I will send them to some of our friends who do smaller projects like that, right? So I'm also trying to help solve their issue, and it may be us that can solve it for them, and it may be somebody else, and I will pass them to another architect if that direction seems like the way that it needs to go. But I'm mostly trying to identify why they would need us, and how we might be able to help, whether it's our company or somebody else. And a lot of times I'll talk to people and I'll say, what I'm hearing is, I think we're just going to be way too robust if you're just trying to do this little project. And then a lot of times they'll kind of swing back and say, well, there is a whole bunch of other stuff that we want to do. This is just the first thing we want to talk about. If we hire you guys, are you going to look at everything for us? I'm like, yes, that's exactly what we do. We want to look at the house holistically, come up with a master plan, and then figure out what's most important. And then it kind of clicks in and ends up being a great fit after we have the conversation, as opposed to someone saying bathroom remodel.
So from that point on, right? Where they come in and they decide to do business with you, do you invariably, is it a design and a build process, or you're okay with just helping them, conceptualize, design the space and hand over the design to them and then they can go find another builder? Or are you, you prefer, I'm sure it's fun to design and build the entire project, but do you split your services into 2?
We do not. We've done that previously and we decided to stop doing that for a couple reasons. Well, I take that back. Yes, clients do not have to build with us, but we want them to want to build with us. But after we do design, they can leave because we have 2 steps. We have multiple steps. The moment they sign on with us, that doesn't mean that they're signing, a $500,000 contract for us to build something. They're hiring us to do step 1, which is our feasibility design, to come up with the design solutions that could work for them and understand what that might cost. And once we complete that, for sure, they could take it to somebody else. They can do whatever, they can build it themselves if they want. But again, in that initial discovery call, I'm trying to make sure that they understand, like, we're the best solution to build it as well, because we're one team that's integrated. And honestly, our deliverables out of feasibility design, you can't take those in for permit. you're still going to have to go through a lot of design steps to get to know what's going to be built. So, our goal is 90% conversion of anyone in design to construction. And then we're just not big enough to be able to do design only services because we just don't have a big enough design team to do that. And our design team stays consistently busy trying to get stuff ready for the construction team. Because ultimately, as a business, we're not an architecture firm, we're a construction company, and we have all the expenses that go with being a construction company. So if I don't have construction going, then we're not doing very well. That's what we've learned over the years. We need both, and we need clients who
some
want
of the
to build
terms
with
that
us.
you're using are new to me. Feasibility design. How does that differ from what I would just call a sketch plan? I guess is what somebody draws when they. So this you're looking at the excruciating details of levels, and what is a feasibility design?
Yeah. You know what? It comes from the name comes from back for the first firm I worked for. We did residential work, but we also did commercial developer plans. So I remember that first design step. Some people might call it concept design, but when you're working for a commercial developer, they're basically doing their due diligence. They're looking at a piece of land and they want to see how many parking spots they can get on it. They want to see if they can have, an anchor tenant here and then whatever the island building is.
I
So
see.
they're hiring you to do their due diligence feasibility planning. So it's kind of the same idea. Like, you guys own this house, you have problems with it. We want to see
I see.
what's possible and what that could cost. And so, yes, for us, it is way more than a sketch because we're using that three-dimensional model and presentations for two reasons. One, well, really for three reasons. First one is our design team thinks creatively three-dimensionally as opposed to just in plan. We want to test it and we might learn from that and come up with something better. Number two, then our clients who aren't developers, they're homeowners who have regular jobs and take care of their kids. They don't know what a plan sketch is or may not. So we want to present to the best of our ability efficiently what the spaces look and feel like. Picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth 1,000,000 words, right? So that way, what we're showing them, they can get excited about, and then they can also give us feedback. And then the third piece of it is the more accurate we are with our feasibility designs and modeling them, we're able to get real quantity takeoffs. We're able to get more accurate with budgeting and scope in that early phase, as opposed to here's a napkin sketch. It's 400 square feet. That's probably going to be $200,000, right? We have no idea how accurate that budget really is. But when we dig in and do a more detailed exercise and really plan this thing out, understand how many linear feet of cabinets, how many square feet of countertop, tile, which areas are being demoed, then we're able to get more accurate in budgeting early.
Absolutely. So then you're not just talking about a paper. You're not like a roll of paper that you're bringing and rolling out on a table. If this is 3D, you're able to present it to the homeowner visually using software, I assume, on a screen, or for them to be able to see the space. Incredible. And I guess pricing out things early on is going to prevent disappointment and surprises. So it's a win-win with the feasibility design then.
Yeah, I mean, as an architect earlier on in my career, when you're just providing services, there's nothing more frustrating than designing something and it not getting built. But as a business model as an architecture firm, it's actually very successful because then you're just selling paper with zero liability, right? So I've always felt like that's a weird, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, at the end of the day, like what I design, I want it to be built. And budget is part of that. And the whole idea of an architecture firm being hired and then going through months and months of design and then bidding it out to find out what it costs. And then that pricing comes back and it's way over budget. And then you have two options. You can pay the architect even more money to change it, to make it less expensive. But more often than not, the general contractor takes it over and says, okay, I'm going to change all this stuff and get your budget down. And then you just end up with something with no actual, design integrity is part of it. So
yeah,
in
sure,
my
you're
head, the
creating
way we
beautiful
do it is the
spaces.
way it should be.
But on that note, do you ever feel nervous when you've designed something and then it's going to come to life? Is it like it's your creation? Like, do you feel nervous as to what the end product is, the construction is going to look like? Or because of having done this over and over, you're confident and you're able to visualize the spaces and say, this is really going to be perfect?
Yeah, I would say early on, absolutely. Like with my first house in Chicago, which to your earlier question, when we started doing what we're doing, I said I didn't necessarily know that there was a market for it,
I
and
can
also I
imagine.
didn't necessarily have the confidence that we were really good at it. Like I might like something, does that mean that it's good? And early on, it was really just the two of us with a couple people in the field. So that was a lot on my shoulders to be like, well, maybe I'm a terrible architect. I have no idea. I hope not. So then testing it with my house, and I was like, this is actually pretty good. And then, yeah, over time, you just have a little bit more confidence and experience in knowing what works well and what doesn't. And then, I mean, I would say with the visualization tools that we have, and our design team gets together and hops on a Zoom, and we're able to review stuff and talk about it and get visual feedback really quickly. It gives you more confidence just knowing that like this is what this is going to look and feel like. We feel good about it. And then the reality is the built space and what we do, and with a couple firms where I've worked, the actual built product is better than the renderings and the concept. More often than not, in the design world, you see these incredible renderings, and then the finished product doesn't look like that at all, right? It looks lame. But we're pretty good at what we actually end up building. I would say is better than
so it's actual,
early
like you look at the design and then the product is incredible. When you think about all the projects you've done through the years, do you have a favorite, either because of the complexity of the project or that the budgeting was complicated? Do you have a story to share of a certain project or a building or a design that you were engaged in that kind of is either close to your heart, or you're like, that was so complicated? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like a favorite child, right? Or at least favorite child. I mean, we definitely have a lot of them. I'd say, my house here in North Carolina that we just remodeled and added on to was a pretty exciting endeavor in making this whole thing work and solving a lot of constraints, and then also doing it in a new city with building out trades. Like in terms of like feeling good about actually achieving something, that one is definitely up there. And then, yeah, I mean, some of my favorite projects are really a function of the clients and just how excited they have been about their spaces and how they've changed, because really that's what it's all about. It's not about me. It's really about, when you see their kids in the spaces. I mean, we have one client who told us that, I know this sounds a little bit crazy, but the addition that we did to their house has made her a better mom. And what she means by that is, while she's able to, make dinner, the family eats healthier, she's engaging with them, sitting around the island, there's sunlight, she's in a better mood, the kids are in a better mood. Like all of a sudden, there's certain things that sounds crazy, like a new kitchen's going to make you a better person. Yeah, it does. I think that there is something to, those spaces where you interact with your family and really making those special, maybe even like a little bit inspiring at times, adds a lot of value to people's lives. So anytime we get moments like that, those projects are definitely up there. We had this was early in Livco. We had a bungalow that we built a second floor on, and they lived there with their 3 kids. And I think like by the end of it, they were living in like one 10 by 10 room. And we had another family in the same town with their 3 kids. We had a big addition on the back, and they were basically living in just the one front room, using their hot plate every day and just smiling the whole way through. So I don't know. It's the people that we're able to work with
it's such a personal business, really remodeling, right? You're transforming lives and getting into people's homes and spaces that they're just going to make memories and raise children and have birthdays and weddings. And Incredible. What is your take on AI? Do you use AI in your work? I work with remodeling contractors, and some of them get worried, saying, "Oh, AI is going to like take over the world." And if there is one industry that I think AI cannot really replace any of the jobs, it's remodeling. But what is your personal philosophy when you look at AI, and do you use it in your day to day, and or do your teams use it for to either simplify, enhance customer experiences? Where do you use AI today, and do you have a favorite tool that you default to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been part of our AI has been part of what we've done for years now. It's just, kind of the chat GPT interface of it just feels a little bit different. I actually wrote an article on it in JLC, I think about a year and a half ago when they first released ChatGPT. And, kind of macro, what I was trying to get towards is like, don't run away from this technology in our industry, engage it and help shape it and what it can do for our industry. Otherwise, somebody else is going to create a way that we're going to have to use their AI in our industry. Kind of the same thing in the architecture world, right? It's like you guys can just ignore this thing, be freaked out by it, or actually engage it and find ways to make your lives more efficient. And just like you used to have, 8 people digging a hole, then they invented a backhoe. And you don't need 8 people digging a hole, but you need people that know how to maintain backhoes, and you need people that know how to drive backhoes, and you need people to manufacture the parts for backhoes. So, it's an industry shift, where yes, in the field, we're not going to really see any massive shifts, I think, as a result of AI. The places where I hope it can benefit us at the field and vendor level is, more accurate information for the field. Like if there is a way where AI can, quadruple check all the stuff that we're trying to get to the field to make sure that they have the accurate information and always stay on top of that stuff for us.
Yep.
Because nothing hurts us more than discrepancies of information. And same thing with the vendors being able to get stuff to us, make installations of specialty materials simpler and more consistent. I think there's a lot of places where it can make labor more efficient, kind of on the front end of the products and the information that's delivered. I don't use it a whole lot. ChatGPT I use sometimes to check stuff for me, and I use like their image checker too to be like, hey, I'm doing a graphic or something. What do they think about this? And give us some ideas. But I'm not in terms of, the ChatGPT stuff, it doesn't do a whole lot for me other than maybe generate some ideas if I'm having a writer's block. I feel like where I'm starting to see it come into play more a little bit is we use Canva for a lot of marketing stuff, like a lot. And there's just so much out there, right? So the AI is able to kind of narrow stuff for you. So if I'm trying to come up with something, I can be like, well, I need to make this, a little bit more professional looking, and I'll offer up different font sets and things like that. That's where I think it can be pretty fun. It just makes it so I don't feel like I'm always
you're so right.
having to start
Embracing it
something from
is
scratch.
important, that we just have to embrace it and, hit the road running, use it, and, see how it can serve us.
Yeah, I would love it if it could take every project that we've ever done and just comb through the project folders and just found patterns, consistency, was able to help us build out repeatable systems. I'd love it to be able to basically just go through our entire workflow.
I think it has the potential. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. What is your source of lead generation today to find new homeowners that would be a good fit for you? Is it word of mouth? Is it referrals? What is your lead generation strategy to keep your business, beating or meeting those revenue goals?
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of we're like in the 7 touch point rule type of thing, right? What is it?
Omnipresence.
You need to hear about us from 7 different places in order. I don't remember if the number's 7, but so yeah. So I think that's what we holistically are always trying to do. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn is kind of our daily that's going on. obviously website updates, Google My Business continues to be kind of growing. So we paid for some increased services there to build GMV a little bit more. We pay for SEO services to make sure that we're staying relevant and blog content is happening. That's kind of what we have going on the digital side. We tried some paid ads for Google last year with pretty not great results. So we canned that and we switched to display ads, which I think we're not spending a whole lot, like maybe $500-600 a month or something. It seems like the display ads did a little bit more for us, but I would say then we did some print advertising in local community magazines. We tried that for a couple of years. Again, like I don't know if I can attribute anything directly to it, but then we just get a lot of calls off of seeing our van drive around, project signs, referrals, and repeat are starting because we're only 12 years old. So that referral tree grows.
Nice.
The repeat tree is starting to be a thing. So it's a little bit of everything. We sponsor a lot of events, like local events. Yeah.
Nice.
Summer festivals.
You, of course, have several 5-star reviews on your Google business profile. Do you have a review collection strategy, or does it just happen organically when there is a super pleased homeowner that goes and toots your horn? Or do you have a concerted plan where you're saying, okay, we need to collect reviews for that social proof? What is your strategy today?
Yeah, I would say that has changed a little bit. It used to be a lot easier. It used to be after the project's done, we do a professional photo shoot and we schedule that with them. And then after that, we would give them a gift. And then I would send them the photos and then ask for a Google review just through email with a link. And it was pretty easy peasy. What we found is people just aren't as urgently submitting them. And I don't know if it's just because we've grown and maybe we're not as personal as we used to be when it was just a couple people. I don't know if it's because people feel weird how they have to log into Google and now their name's attached to a review. So we've shifted a little bit where we're trying to get the folks, because I'm not as involved in projects as I used to be either. We're trying to get the folks that are involved in it to follow up and push for reviews. So that would be someone from the design team who's going out there for project photos, or even the project manager. So they have cards with a QR code on it. So if our PM gets them to scan and do a Google review, we'll give a bonus for that. So we're trying to find other ways to do it without feeling like we're over pressuring
but I think in today's
clients to do it.
In today's world, you need social proof. I think everybody's brain is wired for that feedback loop of, even if you're buying a pair of socks on Amazon, you're looking at the, rating and then making a decision. So I think our brains are wired for that. So it's something that you can't, ignore, because people want to read those words of another customer that's had a fantastic experience with you. When you think about your entire journey, I think this is kind of a dream for any architect to, have a design build firm and, create these beautiful spaces and transform lives. What do you think was kind of did you have a mentor? Did you have a epiphany? Like, what is it that, put you down this path of where you are today? And it seems like you're having a great time doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a number of mentors, throughout from all kinds of different industries. I would say David Hovey at Optum was always a huge inspiration for me as an architect developer. Tom Rozak is another one, architect developer. I'd speak to him occasionally for feedback. And those are guys that, went to architecture school, worked for firms, and then just went out and did it. So whenever I get kind of like, hung up on stuff a little bit, I'm like, these guys you just have to go do it, right? And so many, and not just architects, but it's a different mentality to be an entrepreneur. Like, you have to do it. There's a level of ignorance is bliss. And there are, no matter what, going to be, bad times. So you can talk to David Hovey and Tom Rozak about that, right? Multiple, housing crises and things like this, and they're both residential builders. So, that's just kind of part of it, and just understanding the greater scheme of things, you're able to create things that you want to create, bring them to the world, and have some fun doing it. But the first step is just to do it.
So you were a pretty young company that survived the COVID-19 pandemic. What were some of the issues that you had to encounter to keep your business going through the pandemic? And there's been, labor issues, so many things that are just a byproduct of a worldwide pandemic. So did you switch your business model? How did you guys survive the pandemic?
Great question. I think that's the first time anybody's ever asked that. But we had, what a crazy time. So we had a couple projects that were under construction at the time. And we knew that obviously for our business and also for those clients whose houses were under construction, the most important thing was to finish those projects. Number one on the construction side. So if we had a full shutdown in Chicago, we were considered essential. So, we'd have to figure out ways to do it safely, but we needed to get people their kitchens back. They're going to be locked down for all this time. So that was a big piece of it. Then there was not a whole lot of design. There weren't a whole lot of people calling up to say, hey, let's design an addition for my house. So the design team's my energy shifted to just grassroots, having fun marketing. So did a lot of videos, just had fun doing stuff. We created Zoom backgrounds, so we just, wherever we had like a place we could help or maybe make people smile a little bit, we were trying to do it.
Sweet.
We made coloring books for kids that we could drop off. We had a couple different things. If people wanted a Livco hat, we ordered a bunch of Livco hats. It's like, just message us and we'll drop one off on your front porch, right? So we just pushed a lot of stuff out that I think was authentic, and we were just doing the best we could. And then another kind of big shift that we did in our business model is we raised our design fees, which seems backwards, right? But the reality was we needed money. And if someone paid us $1,000 to do design, that didn't help us at all, right? So instead of looking at design as a loss leader, we looked at it as an actual functioning piece of our business.
So were you designing for free earlier, or you had a very low price point? And then what was it?
Just a low point of view.
Wow.
Yeah. We started with $750, then we went to $1,500 to $2,500, and now we're $6,500 to $10,500. And then our detailed design fee is an additional 10% of the project. So our full design fees are about 12 to 13%.
Yeah. So what brought you to that realization during the pandemic?
Honestly, what it takes.
Have the downtime to run the numbers and say, hey, this design stuff is time intense and we should be charging more? Or
a little bit. It was kind of like it was kind of like an all or nothing kind of thing, right? So how do I kind of describe it a little bit more? Yes, functionally we needed to make more money doing it, but as a design build business, we don't have things that we can sell or just put on sale, right? So if I have no revenue coming in, I can't just all of a sudden go and sell kitchen cabinets. There's a whole front end that goes to it. The only thing that I can sell and get money for tomorrow is design in the way that we're set up. So we took a deep look into, what we can sell in terms of services. We kind of have our feasibility and detailed design phase, but we've always looked at opportunities for maybe a lighter version of that, right? Maybe there is something we can do for $500, or maybe there's something we can do for $2,500. Or is there a way to get it to construction faster? So it's really just kind of testing out certain things. And I think our core feasibility to detailed design process with total design fees of 12 to 13% seems to be the best process for our clientele and, should work financially. Those are some of the big shifts that we did. And then, dealing with labor after the fact. It was hard. It's still hard because it's still going like this, right? So as my partner Russ would always say, we just manage through it. Try and do the best we can.
So you kind of productized your service then, your design services, and came up with like buckets and realized that you had the opportunity to price it more, to want to put money in the bank and to also be compensated fairly for the amount of time and effort that it takes for you to do those designs. Do you have a favorite book?
Sure.
Movie? I know, one book is hard.
Oh, geez.
Are you a published author yourself?
I write for JLC, Remodeling Magazine, and Pro Remodeler. and then I have my thesis, but I haven't written the book. Um, yeah, I would say, why can't I even remember the name of it? My favorite book is, it's a good
Yeah.
life-changing one, but I'll put Power of Now out there. Power of Now is another great one. They're all kind of in the similar light of, you know, your brain getting in the way,
Shatter. Mm.
kind of thing. But it's a Hiram Smith book. But yeah, any any book that's kind of focused on life, structure,
Mm.
and passion, and using the brain as a tool is usually something that I kind of appreciate. But I mean, behind me, you'll see everything from architecture
Nice.
to
Very
ceramics
cool.
books
What do you
to
do for
good to
fun
great
when
to
you're
all
not
that
working
stuff.
and sketching? And I'm sure your brain must be such a systematic brain with the ability to like sketch things. What do you do for fun when you're not working?
So me personally, I like building stuff and working in the yard, building, whatever I can do to just build stuff and work outside. I enjoy doing. And then, as a family, all three of my kids play hockey, so that's kind of our extracurriculars,
Hockey as in ice?
traveling around to their different
Ice
hockey
hockey?
tournaments and having a good
Oh,
time with
wow.
that. So,
Nice. And it's
yeah, ice
they
hockey.
they just fell
Yeah.
into playing ice hockey, or was that
So
something
yeah,
that you did as a child and trans
I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, so I didn't even know what hockey was.
there's
But
a
living in
tournaments and you
Chicago was a
drive them
pretty
around
easy
and
thing
stuff
to get
like that.
into, and we love it.
Very cool. So you must have a lot of equipment in
Oh
your
yeah,
house then.
lots of hockey.
The kid stuff.
Yes,
You
and it
haven't
all
you
smells
haven't
terrible.
designed a really
It
cool
stays in the garage.
space to aerate the stinky stuff. I have a kid that's just obsessed with soccer.
It's in my head. The garage renovation is on the
Five
list.
or
I'll get
six
to that
years.
probably in 5 or 6 years.
Well, if there is an architect, young architect that's listening to this podcast and wants to kind of follow your path, what would be like, one tidbit of advice that you would give them?
Yeah, I mean, for any architect, I think you just figure out what you really love about design and then just build out a business around that. I was fortunate that I kind of fell into residential remodeling, but loved doing it, right? So I didn't, 12 years ago, or I guess when I graduated college 22 years ago, I didn't say, hey, I want to have a residential design build remodeling company. I just kind of learned over time what I enjoyed doing and what I think I was good at bringing to the world, and then just built a company around it. But then the other most important piece of that is, I think a lot of architects, when they have these ideas and want to go do something, they feel like they're the only one that's ever done that, and they try and reinvent the wheel. It took me a couple years to realize that there's a pretty incredible community of design, build, remodeling companies, many of them architecture led or with a heavy layer of architecture in that, which has been invaluable. So, like, what we do really isn't that novel. There's great companies, small businesses up to 60 people that are doing this very similar thing
So
throughout the
I notice
country,
you're a member of the
doing
National
really, really cool
Association of
work.
Remodelers. Do you like going to their events? Do you go to conferences? Do you have favorite conferences that you like to hit up every year?
Yeah, so I'm on the board. I believe I'm likely going to be the incoming president for NARI Chicago this coming year. Yeah, we're trying to get a sense of what our members would like to see more of, and I think a lot of it is essentially just networking with other people in the industry, similar to what the Home Builder Association does, and getting to know each other and working with each other. So we're going to be continually building out more and more events, possible, home shows, parade of homes types of things. We're looking into a lot of ways to do that, as well as speakers from, Federal Reserve, things like that. So from a conference standpoint, I enjoy, I've done the Pinnacle Experience, I've done the Remodeler Summit. I always enjoy going to those and getting the level of motivational speak, as well as deep business talk, as well as dialing into the numbers and market conditions. 2 weeks ago, I was at the HERE conference, HERE Summit, which is the Home Improvement Research Institute, which was really great. It was a lot of data points from different speakers, talk about different generations and different patterns, and all the way there to what's going on in the Harvard joint housing studies, things like that. So I like if I'm going to go to a
Excellent.
conference, I like
Well,
it to be
I
pretty
really appreciate
well-rounded.
your time. It was a delight to hang out with you and get to know about your story as well as your passion for design and build. So thank you again. If you would like to generate more leads through your digital marketing efforts, please visit remodelerdigital.com and check the workshop section for video training and guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads and how to have your website be best friends with the Google algorithm. Also sign up for a 15-minute discovery call with me to run an online snapshot report of your remodeling business. This has been another successful episode of the Remodeler Digital Playbook. Thanks for listening.